Hey, Jeff Callahan here from Become More Compelling. Welcome to another episode of the Become More Compelling podcast, the podcast where I have on people skill experts, and sometimes I just talk to you solo. But in this case, I have on my friend Nick Gray. And Nick, if you don't know, this is actually his second time on the podcast. Our first time, we talked about his amazing book, The 2 Hour Cocktail Party: How to Run Small Events in a limited time window that makes it more likely where people show up. So definitely check out his book, The 2 Hour Cocktail Party. In this return episode, we get into all kinds of fun stuff. The IRL-Surface area, which will explain what that is, and it's pretty nice. Saying yes to more opportunities, how Nick met his wife, the friendship recession, which I find completely fascinating, humor and self-deprecating humor, and why it can be pretty risky. We do get into some book launch stuff because I am in the last throes of writing my book, and so we do talk about that quite a bit. We also do talk about why you should have a personal website and sort of the reputation management for just the common man, just your ordinary everyday person, and why it makes a lot of sense for them to have some place on the internet where people can learn more about them. And we also get into some fun AI tools that have been useful to us recently. I love this episode. I like hanging out with Nick. Nick's a good guy. A little bit more about Nick's background. If you don't know who Nick is, aside from running the 2 Hour Cocktail Party, a lot of people know him as the founder of Museum Hack, a company that gives renegade museum tours. He sold that company, and he actually sold a couple of multi-million dollar businesses, and now he gets to double down on what he actually enjoys, which includes writing on his blog, sending out his free monthly Friends newsletter, which I've subscribed to, and it's very good, and hosting great events. And I'll make sure to link his monthly Friends newsletter in the show notes and in the YouTube description, so you can take a peek at that, and then we'll get all the relevant links on there too. And enjoy this episode. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and away we go. Hey, and welcome to another episode of Become More Compelling, my podcast where I talk to cool people like Nick, which I'm excited to say, Nick, you are the first returning guest on Become More Compelling. So I don't have a medal or anything for you, but maybe like a webcam high five.
Webcam high five. This is an honor. This is a true honor.
Nick, for people who don't know, the last time we talked a lot about your book, The 2 Hour Cocktail Party. Amazing book. I've been recommending it to clients. Clients have been having parties based on your book, and so really loved our conversation last time, and I'm excited to bring you on today. And we're going to get into some really cool stuff. We were just talking offline, and I told you, like, hey, let's hold it, let's hit record and actually talk about it. So the first thing I'd like to cover, well, number one, congratulations on getting married. That's huge.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Big win, big life change for me.
Huge. I've been married now, I guess, gosh, after a little bit, it starts to get a little fuzzy. I've been married for 11 years now. I'm working on year 12.
Congratulations on 11, almost 12 years.
It doesn't feel like it, man. Like I still feel pretty young. I'm not even 40 yet. But one of the things that really stuck out at me is how you met your wife. And if you want, you can take it away from there, and we'll kind of layer in some of the topics that we want to talk about today. Sound good?
Yeah, it sounds good. I met my wife the old-fashioned way. I met her in real life out at the pool. We have a big public pool here in Austin, Texas called Barton Springs Pool. And I saw her sitting up on the hill reading a book, and I went up and I chatted with her. Now, this idea to me sounds crazy now. Like, I know that I did it, but it sounds very wild. And I think that there's a version of me that would have heard that and said, no, that's crazy. How could you ever do that? Like, to just go talk to somebody random. But by putting in the reps, and I think by making that IRL surface area, making me someone who just was comfortable talking to strangers, through years of doing that, this became a natural thing that as soon as I saw her, boom, I went and I had to go speak to her. So I'd
Yeah.
love to chat with you about that
Yeah.
because you were telling me something in your new book. Can you say
Yeah.
about that idea?
I can. So, I think most of my audience probably already knows, but if you don't, I'm writing a book. It's called Confidence Maxing. It'll be back out early next year. And one of the chapters, which Nick makes an appearance, it's chapter 6, where I talk about, and I use Nick as an example of what I call IRL maxing. And so really similar in the same universe as IRL-Surface area, where the more often you are just out and about experiencing life, doing things, you open yourself up to potentially meet, in like in your case, Nick, like you met your future spouse. Like it in this on a scale of meeting people that have an impact on your life, like that's it. Like it's a scale up to that point. Like that's the 10 out of 10, right?
Yeah,
And
that's the
so,
biggest one.
if you would like talk a little bit about just like your background. You had museum hack, and you had 10, 15 years of I don't know if it came naturally to you or not, but sort of ingraining in yourself the notion of, hey, I talk to people, it's what I do.
Yeah.
and that and I just love it so much because it prepared you for that moment, which
Hmm.
was the most important conversation that you would ever start.
I never
which is
thought about
which
it
is
like that,
wild.
but you're so right, dude. You're so right.
So did the notion of IRL surface area, I get out, I talk to people, it's what I do. Did that hit you as a notion at some point, or was it just kind of a gradual, sort of layering of all the different stuff you've done over the last, decade plus?
Look, here's the reality. The reality is that I did not do well on dating apps. And I knew that for me as a guy, my best bet was to meet a woman that I would fall in love with who became my wife, not on the dating apps. In order to do that, I needed to get out into the world. And I set out a goal for myself, which was to try to say yes to every single thing that I was invited to or opportunity. If I read about a yoga class in the park, like I was going to it. If I got invited to something that wasn't going to meet my goals, and my goal was after I came back from this blind date that I did in Japan that was real
Yeah,
famous online.
very famous.
I came home from that experience and I said, I am ready to find my person. I'm ready to get serious about dating. And I'm just going to put myself in as many of those situations as I can to just say yes and to go out. And I tell you what, it wasn't easy. In fact, a very good friend of mine invited me on an awesome vacation. There was a great deal that he found to go on a really cool cruise. I love cruises, by the way. And I looked at it and I said, you know what? My goal right now is to really meet someone. And I'm not going to meet someone that I want to marry and settle down with here in Texas on this cruise over in Europe. So I had to turn down that cruise because it didn't line up with my goals. Anyhow, I think your question was around this idea of like, was I always like that? Did I train for this? I think it was. It was a long time of me hosting events, getting comfortable, meeting a lot of people that in that moment gave me the confidence to go speak to her.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point, which a lot of people don't talk about, which is the things that you had to say no to or give up because it wasn't part of your, call it, near-term plan. Like the near-term plan probably, it may not have been like, I want to get married. It's like, no, I want to meet someone really cool that I want to have a relationship with, and that's near-term, and everything else followed from that. But a lot of times, a resistance point that is understandable is thinking like, oh, I have to I have to go out and be a man about town or a woman about town, for the rest of my life. And it's like, well, your life really operates in seasons. You might have a season where you work really hard. Like this year was me writing this book that I both now love and hate. I'm
Yes.
sure
Oh my
you
gosh.
can relate. It was funny. I was editing it last night, doing some tasks for my editor, and my wife gets up behind me and she's like, you think you're sick of your book now. Just wait until you get to read the whole thing for the audiobook. And I'm like, oh, damn it.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was just like I died right there in the chair. But we have different seasons in our life. And for you, the season was like, hey, I'm going to say no to some stuff um, because this is what I want. So
Yeah.
were there any other things that you said no to, or was that the big thing, like the cruise, like
Mm.
what trade-offs did you have to make to make this happen? Were you at a point where it felt like, oh, I don't really want to go out today? If I remember right,
Yeah.
the Barton Springs thing actually may have been one of those moments where you're like, oh, I didn't really feel like going out, but I did anyway.
I didn't. Absolutely, I didn't. I was working on something awesome that I was so excited about, and I did not want to leave. But I told myself I'd go out, and I went out and I did it. Um, yeah, I had to give up some things. There are, oh, man, you know what? Like I used to have this hobby. I feel like such a nerd sharing this, but it made me think of like the things that we give up. And one of the things I gave up was I used to collect, you're going to laugh at me. I used to collect airline safety cards. You know those like emergency
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
cards? Because I traveled so much and I worked in the aviation industry in my 20s, I used to collect those safety cards. And whenever I would move, I'd lug around this huge box of airline safety cards. And I remember, and people would mail them to me, and I love whenever I could get a unique one from a random airline or a strange airplane. And then I remember one time I was like, you know what? I think I just have to give this up. This isn't a hobby or a sort of collection that serves me anymore. Probably there were moments like that as I thought about my own communication skills or my goals in meeting people, that maybe there were certain events or certain things I was doing with my time that I did have to give up so I could focus on more productive stuff.
Yeah, and it's like anything else in life is there's only trade-offs, right? And so some of the trade-offs, like you give up stuff that you really like, and that's a sort of a tuition price you have to pay to get what you wanted, which is finding a person to spend the rest of your life with, which is
Yeah.
looking back, like of course you would give up picking on the airline thing, but like you would give up the cards to go
Right.
and meet your future wife, like duh. Um, but
Wait. Now I'm curious to know. So, how did you meet your wife?
Yeah, yeah. So we met back in 2011, and we met online before there were any apps. We met on one of the websites where you would like compose a letter and you would send it to your
Cool.
your beloved. And she sent me a message first, and we met up and just had a really good first date at a Barnes and Noble, and
Wait,
we
that's
just
a great first date. The old book.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. I remember we perused the romance aisle and some other aisles, and I wish I could remember this game that we were playing, but it was something like we would read a line of a romance book to each other, and
Uh-huh.
it was a lot of fun. And then I think we danced in the religion aisle and all that kind of stuff, and so we
That's
had a great
cool.
time.
That's great.
Uh, and I can't imagine. Well, I mean, I can't imagine. I feel like I caught the last chopper out of Nam with meeting my wife when I did, because
Yeah.
right after that was the deluge of apps that pretend to per, per, that kind of lie to you and say, "Hey, we don't want you to be on the app for very long. We want you to meet someone." It's like, no, come on, your
Yeah.
shareholders would disagree with that.
Right.
Uh, and I can't imagine what a meat market it must feel like
Mhm.
in today's day and age, because I've had some clients that will tell me like, oh, I've used the apps for a little bit, but it almost always ends up with like, yeah, it's terrible, and I'm going to go out in real life. So I think we are seeing a resurgence of like, hey, people are hungry to kind of get off the screen and do
Yeah.
things IRL. Any
Yeah.
thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, we're experiencing a friendship recession. And there's a blog that I keep, I'll link it in the show notes, called friendshiprecession.com, where I collect these articles that talk about
Mm.
this, loneliness epidemic of sorts. So, yes, that is real. I was curious though, how do your clients hire you? Does it end up being more personal or more professional?
That's a good question. It's pretty evenly split. Where some people just want it for their personal communication skills because maybe they have their career on lockdown and they're just like, oh, career's going great. I just want to make more friends. Okay, great. And then the other half is like, hey, I have this gap, professionally, or I'm running this startup or whatever it happens to be, and I want to, you know, lock in these particular behaviors. And so if I was putting a percentage on it, man, it feels like it's about 50-50, even though I know it probably isn't. It's probably 60-40 one way. What I always tell people too is like, even if you really just want to focus on career, you come to me for career, you come to me for personal, it's gonna overlap into the other realm anyway.
It does.
It's not as easy as those carts, those food carts they give to kids where everything's sectioned out. Like it doesn't work like that. It all ends up commingling with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's neat. I was wondering, it really does. I guess that confidence and that kind of charisma does go both ways. There were two things I was thinking about. One, I was curious, do you ever give people advice about how to be more funny at work? It's a very difficult, complicated question that I don't have a good answer to.
Yeah, yeah. So I do have quite a few clients over the years that want help being funnier. And if there's anything that I am as close to being a natural at as possible, it's being funny. And so because of that, it's actually one of the more difficult things to teach, which I think it's hard anyway. But what I typically recommend to people is something along the lines of look for ways to fit things together that don't go together, because that's really at the heart of being funny. That's really what it is. The thing that you know the thing that shouldn't go where you're trying to put it, and that contrast is what makes it funny. Now there are a bunch of different ways to do that, but I think for a lot of people, especially if they have like really technical interests, they aren't consuming much comedy stuff anyway. And so I tell them like, look, you have to be watching, make it a season of your life. Like you gotta watch some stand up comedy. One of my, I guess he's one of my favorites now, is Nate Bargatze.
Very funny, very
Yeah.
funny guy. He's like a world class.
Yeah, he's world class, and like what makes him interesting to me is he works clean, which to me is just like orders of magnitude more difficult.
Yeah.
Then because it would be very easy to sling a curse word here or there, but man, to work clean, I'm like, man, I respect that.
Yeah.
I like all kinds of comics, I don't get offended easily, but just the fact that he's like, he has this bit about he's changing shirts after playing golf, and someone walks up to him and they ask if he's like their elderly wife. he's like, he's like, I look like your elderly, like your elderly wife with my shirt off next to my car.
Right. Right.
And yeah, like so I tell people like you have to develop a taste, because if you don't, then you're just kind of trying stuff that it's way easier to kind of steal things a little bit, where steal the timing, steal all that kind of stuff, so that when you're trying to be funny at work, for example, you've got a model to work off of it. And if you can do something that's relatively clean, like a lot of workplaces would be appropriate for, that's a really good way to do it. But humor is it's not one of my most sought after things, but it's something I've been asked about quite a bit over the years.
I was in a workshop recently that was about, it was a small 1 hour discussion group, and it was about how to be more funny at work. And we talked a lot about self-deprecating humor and how that is a good way to be funny. And yet it can be high risk, high reward sometimes at work to try to worry, like, if I make a joke, am I going to get in trouble with HR? So now that I think about it, I'm so glad that you mentioned Nate Bargatze, because you're right. He does play clean. And that is the type of humor that one would probably try to model if you had to model. And if your goal was to like limit my risk of getting in trouble with HR, you would want to watch stand up for clean clean comics. Because it's one piece of advice to be like, oh, if you want to be more funny at work, watch a lot of stand-up comedy. Well, no. You
Maybe
need to
don't watch the Dave Chappelle.
Yes, right. Don't watch stuff that's going to get you in trouble. So that's a good point. I like that.
Yeah. And yeah, and it's one of those things where if you practice it for a while, you start to notice spots where you can say something a little outlandish, or a lot of the humor that I like is like trying on like a pretend reality. Like imagine if, and then you go off and you say something that's a little out there. Like imagine if this thing or that thing happened, and then you can usually insert something with a straight face that's outlandish, but you play it off like you're serious, and then people the juxtaposition gets people, and they're like, oh, he's not serious about riding a unicorn around the office or whatever it happens to be, right?
What is that called exactly? Is it like imagine if or something?
Yeah, so maybe it has a technical name, but imagine if is a good way to think about it. And I'm usually looking for stuff nested in there that's juxtaposition, where I can juxtapose things that again aren't supposed to fit together. But to your point about self-deprecating humor, something that I think about a bit is self-deprecation works really well with people that know you well.
Oh, interesting. But people who don't know you well won't necessarily understand it, or
Yeah, so I bring this up in the book, not when I'm talking about humor, but when I'm talking about stories. Like, don't tell the story about you being cheap to a group of new friends, because the story about you being cheap and saving $200 on your car but almost dying might be really funny for like your college roommate or whatever that you've known forever, and that's just hilarious. But to that new group of people, it represents a larger percentage sample size of what they know about you. And so fairly or unfairly, it's just, oh, he told me the story about how he's cheap. Is he going to like Venmo me for $2.19 for these appetizers or whatnot, you know? And so just, my whole thing is it's easy to overthink a lot of communication stuff. So simple rules of thumb are often best because you don't have to overthink stuff. But one of the things is just think about like, oh, well, I probably want to tell stories or tell jokes that paint me in a decent light. And then for the people that I know really well, kind of the rules go out the window because they know me really well. And like, I've given them 7 rides to the airport, and, you know, I've bought dinner for them a few dozen times, but then, I wanted to save $200 and I thought it'd be a really good idea, but I almost fell off a cliff or whatever happens to be. And so something like that is good to be aware of. And I think it relates to self-deprecating humor too.
That is a joke that I would make, which would be like about me being cheap or something. And you're right that it's so helpful to honestly talk this out, because I can tell that you know your stuff, because you're like, don't do self-deprecating humor for people who don't know you, because they don't know. Like, it's very hard to make fun of yourself when they don't know that is a joke. That's a really good point. It's so obvious talking about, but I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have thought about that, but that's so true.
Yeah. And it's also different if like, you just met people and you picked up the tab for dinner, but then you talk about, you know, this time you almost fell off a cliff because you saved $200. Like, so the context matters, in what you've done before matters, and all that kind of good stuff. Yeah. So I like it.
Hey, wait a second. You said something about your book. I want to riff on that for a second.
Yeah, please do.
You mentioned reading your audiobook. Have you read the whole thing out loud yet?
No.
So
I've read many sections out loud, but not the whole thing.
So before I locked the copy, I read the whole thing out loud, and I found a couple little things that were either typos or just didn't make sense. And so I would encourage you, I know it's going to be painful and it's going to take a couple hours, but you would rather...
Why are you giving me more stuff to do on the book?
I know. But you would rather catch this now than when you get to it in the audiobook and you're like, oh my God, now that I read that out loud, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And we've already identified a couple phrases where we're like, that's going to be real fun on the audiobook. I think we ended up changing them. I'm sure, and my listeners are just going to have to bear with me, because Nick and I are going to talk about books because it's my podcast and I can do whatever I want. And we talked about IRL-Surface maxing and all that fun stuff. But Yeah, like I wonder if you can relate to this, like having something that is so it gets pretty unwieldy when there's so many words involved. Because I think mine's clocking in at 55,000 words, something like that, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's kind of a beast when it's like steering. It's what I imagine steering like an aircraft carrier would be like, and you're trying to like do things with it and go through and look at things. And so,
Mm-hmm.
any tips you have, like, I think reading it out loud, as much as I hate to hear that, honestly,
Mm.
I know
Yeah.
that it's it's the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and I can respect that. So I think before we're gonna lock in the manuscript hopefully today, but I am gonna read everything, and that'll also help from a sheer muscle memory standpoint of when you're just talking, you have to enunciate a little bit more. Like I do a little voiceover work for my wife's podcast. She
Mm-hmm.
she has a fiction podcast that she runs that's not related to her day job, but because she's a podcast producer in real life. But uh, and I am the most popular character on the show where
Nice.
I play a cat, like a literal cat attorney. It's called Community Cat News, and we got a few dozen episodes out, and they're all great. But for just doing the voice work, she'll have to tell me constantly, like, look, you have to enunciate everything. And so I'm like, okay, I know when I'm reading this
Yeah.
book, it's going to feel a lot more like that and a lot less like doing a video for my YouTube channel or something like that. And so
Mm-hmm.
any other tips you can throw my way, I will soak them in.
Someone told me that when I was reading my book to stand up instead of sitting down,
That's
and
good.
that standing up, you just have a different feeling for stuff. So I like that advice. The other advice was, man, I could only read 90 minutes at a time. It's exhausting,
Hmm.
much more than you would think because you are reading and engaged and there's no time off. Your brain is, it's not like a conversation like this where I can talk, I can rest and listen. You're just on and every word has to be perfect. So I tell you what, I had to space mine out over a couple days.
Yeah, I think I've definitely planned for that because I think doing two or three chapters at a time, and then you're going to need a break at some point. Yeah, good tips. I like the standing up tip as well. I think that's smart.
Hmm.
Which I haven't used. I got rid of my standing desk for no good reason, but it's just like I hate lifting it up and putting it back down. So I'm gonna have to reconfigure my office for that. But that'll be all right.
Yeah.
Uh, good. I like it. So um, let's talk about your.
We can also talk book stuff too. If you want to riff on book stuff more, I'm happy to jam on that.
Yeah, actually, okay. You offered. I'm going to ask then because I've got this written down. So it's been. Did you release your book in 2021, roughly?
2022. Yep.
2022. Okay. Um, looking back at your book launch, because that's the next step for me, which is launching the damn thing. What worked really well that you would do again, and were there things that you would just ignore the next time
Yeah.
around, where you're like, yeah, I thought that was a good idea, but it didn't matter at all. Any thoughts there?
Hmm. Let me think. What was really helpful was to have an idea of a launch team, and people have told me this, and I think I could have done a little bit of a better job about getting friends to buy it or read it or write a review on the day that it was released. And that is something that really is true. That stuff really does help. A lot of people talk about it. So it's not a new idea to have a launch team, but I have seen it being done very effectively. So I would suggest it, and to not discount that. Um, I'm not sure. I think I did a lot of podcasts where in the beginning, I don't know if what my background was like on the first interview, but now, like, do you know how you have that really cool red light in the back? You've obviously thought about your studio design, and so that's really helpful. I wish I would have spent some time or money on mine when I did my launch. I really didn't, and
Yeah.
that's unfortunate.
And part of the plan is, as much as I like Back to the Future is going to move to where Jurassic Park is, and then I'm going to print out a 24 by 36 poster of my book, and it's going to live right there.
Cool.
so it can be in the background. And one thing I want to call out, because I've been, you know, having some coffees with people, and uh, seeing some people that I haven't seen in a few years. And I'll mention I'm writing a book, and it's been heartwarming. It's been really heartwarming, where people that maybe at first glance you wouldn't think that they would have much interest in the subject matter of my book necessarily.
Hmm.
They'll tell me, like, look, you have to send me an Amazon link the day it launches. And so, like, I feel like George Bailey at the end of It's a Wonderful Life, where the people come in and, like, instead of dumping money, they all buy his book or something.
Right.
But it's been really heartwarming, where completely unprompted, they're just like, no, give me a link, and I'll be your first customer. It's been really I guess surprising, because sometimes I fall into maybe it's a trap of, I assume the default is most people don't care about my stuff just because
Mm.
people are busy. It's nothing sinister. It's just people are busy. They have their own lives.
Hmm.
I know my audience cares for sure, but I don't expect just, a lot of my friends and family to care all that much. And I'm not
Hmm.
offended by that. Uh,
Hmm.
so I don't know if that was your experience, where you just mention it and they're like, yes, like, send me a link. I want to help out. And so in my mind, I already have a launch team list that's I need to write down, but
Mm.
it's been a good experience so far.
Yeah. I think that generally, when are you thinking of launching? Do you have a date, or you're going to wait to figure that out?
So I don't have a date, but it'll be ready January, probably January to March, somewhere in there. It just depends on what I want to do, kind of associated with that launch. Like, if I want to reach out to a bunch of podcasts and kind of time it right. I go back and forth, where I'm like, I know that you just have to launch it. Like, you have to launch it, get your ducks in a row, have a nice little push, and that's about
Yeah.
the best you can hope for.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be an Alex Hormozy type, where I'm on like a 9-hour webinar slinging books. That sounds awesome, but that's just not realistic.
Yeah. 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 I think that's fair. I think that if you're these days, something I don't know if you've thought a lot about, but in your interviews that you'll do for your book, you may want to mention some of the other books that are like your book.
Mm.
And the purpose of that is to get you to try to show up in the AI search results when people are asking for a book that solves the problem that yours does. And so one of the problems that I had, I host a book that's called The 2 Hour Cocktail Party. I wrote that book, and nobody Googles for how to host a happy hour. That's not something that somebody Googles for, right? And I remember when I wrote my book that someone said, man, I wish you just wrote about how to have social skills, or how to lose weight, or how to, work out, or something like that, because people search for that. Those are problems that people search for. And so my book doesn't tend to show up if you search for something like, hey, how do I make new friends? Or how do I learn more social skills, for example? It won't show up for that because it's called the 2 Hour Cocktail Party, right? And so I
Hmm.
wish I would have talked about some of the other books so that got out into the ether and the transcripts a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is the reasoning would be, for transcripts have become nothing to produce now.
Mm-hmm.
And so more transcripts float out there. And even I guess when stuff is on YouTube, AI is looking at YouTube transcripts, right? When you have the thinking models.
Mm-hmm.
And so mentioning those other books helps to put your book, and you're sort of borrowing some of the authority and credibility of, oh, hey, these things are mentioned. If an AI is going to look for, like, the best books on communication, it might find a podcast, and then you'd be in there.
Mm-hmm.
Am I thinking about that correctly?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's the
Nice.
idea of how we want to seed those ideas, I think. Um, you're thinking of like last edits for your book. Is that the phase
Hmm.
that you're in now?
Yeah, it might be locked as soon as today.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's I've been working on it since January, and it's a lot of work, as you know. Um, it's just I'm convinced that if people knew how much work it was, they wouldn't do it, and that's why, and that's a good thing, because you start writing the book or you start planning the book and you're like, oh, that was a lot of work, but the writing will be easier. The writing's not easy. The writing's harder. And so you write it. You're like, okay, well, of course the writing's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Won't the editing be easier? No.
No.
It's taken twice as long in the edit as it has in the writing. The writing actually wasn't that bad. My secret was I would text a buddy. I wrote him a check for $1,000 and I was like, hey, if I don't give you a manuscript, guess what? You get to cash the check. But I would text him every day my quota of, I think it was 500 words. And I would just text him. I was like, you don't have to reply to these. And then I would just screenshot the app. And because I didn't want to send him a 0 day because that would be embarrassing. And I wrote it in 2 months, 2.5 months, something like that.
Congratulations.
Which, boy, that was so much easier than the editing.
Yeah.
And
what are your goals for this, by the way?
My goals ultimately are, there's some legacy stuff where it's like, I would like to write the next How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Awesome.
And who knows, maybe this is that book. I don't know. I'm taking your advice and I'm plugging a well-known communication book. That's a lofty, lofty goal. Odds are that's not going to happen, but that's okay. But my secondary goal is people are going to read it, they'll find it, and they'll say, hey, this all sounds great. Maybe I could just hire Jeff and get these results faster, get more access to Jeff, and become his client. And, going beyond the scope of the book and all that kind of stuff as well. I kind of have a fantasy about cloning myself, and a book is the damn near closest thing you could do to cloning yourself. And so having the kind of client interactions where someone's already read the book you've written, it would be a pretty good spot to be in, I think. That's the idea, at least.
That's a really great point, actually. I think you are onto something with this, that a book truly is a great way to kind of clone yourself. And I think it will be a great way for folks to find it and be able to do all the things that you could teach them. But then a lot of the best people are going to say, hey, I want one-on-one coaching for this. And I think that's great.
Yeah. And I don't know if you got this way with your book. Did you at the end of the writing and editing and all that kind of stuff process, did you find yourself adding stuff to it where you're like, oh, I could just add this little thing or I could add that little thing?
I did find that. Yeah.
And at some point you have to say, okay, I am done. And I think that day is today. But last week I added a 21-day challenge to the back of the book. And then I was like, you know what? That's great. But wouldn't it be even better if someone goes and gets the AI tool that I created as part of the book, and then they get served a 21-day video challenge. So I shot 21 videos, edited 21 videos, posted 21 videos, and it was a lot of work. I was just working on it constantly last week, but I was like, okay, after this, I felt like I just tossed the ring into the volcano. I'm like, okay, we're done. This is over.
I like the idea of those challenges. I think that's a really good idea.
Because most of how I think about all this stuff is simply that people's default state is they would like to sit on the couch and watch Netflix.
Yeah,
that would be an ideal existence for most people.
Yeah.
That's not ideal if you want to grow. So you have to make the action part as easy, step by step, paint by numbers as possible, so that you'll always get the really motivated people that are really hungry and just want to improve. But you want to sweep up some of the people that are maybe a little less motivated and just need things spelled out, which is every one of us has that, where we'd like to do something, but maybe we need a little help or we need it to be really obvious or something like that. And so I just try to make things as obvious as I can. And I think you do an excellent job of that in your book, where you're like, yes, do this, now do this, now do this, which is just, I think it's one of the best books ever written in terms of making it so easy to take action that you almost can't help but do it, which I love.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I tried to make it super simple. Like, my reading level's about a 5th grade reading level. So that's about,
That's like the GOAT level. That's like the perfect level right there.
Yeah, it's so true. Can I plug the thing that it's this personal website idea? I
I
think
was
your
just going to ask
listeners,
you about this. Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, tell us about it because I'm interested.
Well, do you have a personal website? I'm wondering because I know you do for your business and for your blog and your pod, but do you have a personal website?
Not a personal, just becomemorecompelling.com. It
Yeah,
has all the things.
yeah. But I'm just wondering if you got like, you know, jeffcallahannews.com or some personal site that was sort of about you as a person. What are your thoughts on that? And I'll tell you why I'm asking.
Yeah, so I do own a domain, but nothing is done with it. That is my name. I'm pretty sure
Nice.
I
Nice.
still
What's
have.
the domain?
I think it's jeffcallahan.me, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't think that's lapsed. So if it has, someone else will buy it, and that's okay. I'll buy it from them.
No, it
Uh,
hasn't lapsed. It's still registered. So maybe you're
nice.
planning to do something with it. Well, I would
Yeah,
love to
yeah, yeah.
build out your personal page, and I'm going to talk to you about it. But why have you not done anything with that yet? What's your thought?
My thought is simply that I have become morecompelling.com, and that's where
Oh,
everything lives.
right.
And so that takes the place of a personal branding website.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so here is my pitch. My pitch is that, especially for someone like you who has a public profile, people want to do business with people that they like, know, and trust. And at some point, people are going to look up, become more compelling. They're going to find out about you. And they're going to go to Google or they're going to go to ChatGPT and they're going to say, hey, who is this Jeff Callahan guy? And they're going to try to Google and research a little bit about you. I have found that having my own personal website, separate from my business ventures or something, allows me to put my best foot forward for people to read a little bit about me. Now,
Mm.
sometimes that happens on LinkedIn, sometimes it happens on Instagram, but I prefer to have a little bit of stuff on my own personal website, on my own domain name. But the reason that most people don't set that up is probably like you. They're like, I bought my domain name, but I'm too busy. I don't, what do I even put there? I don't want to start a blog and then I have to maintain it and keep it updated and things like that. My suggestion for folks is just buy a domain name, get jeffcallahan.me, jeffcallahan.net, the real Jeff Callahan. One that I have is nickgraynews.com. So
And that
news.
and that and that lines up with your handles, right? Like it's
Yeah.
your URL is effectively your handle for a lot
Yes.
of
Yes. It
places.
lines up with
Good.
my handle because my handle is Nick
Yeah.
Gray News. But sometimes you can't always get the same handle or whatever. But you need to have your own domain name and you need to write a little bio about yourself. By the way, great task to use ChatGPT or Google Gemini for, to ask it to help you write, the homepage or a bio about yourself. And you want to have that so when people search for you, they get to go and they find your website, and your website's this kind of digital garden of some of the things that you like. Maybe it's a few of your favorite restaurants, a few of your favorite photos. You just want to put your best foot forward to let people come into your world. And so that's my thing about personal websites. I'm collecting a lot of them online. I'll link in the show notes. I just launched it actually today. The website is www.personalwebsites.org. And if you have a personal website now, please submit it there and I'll feature it on my site. But I think we need more of this. And as you talk about becoming more compelling, like more charismatic, more engaging, this is a really good way to do it, to have your digital self online so people can click around and learn more about you. You probably see this when you do guest research on people. If they have a personal website, you get to learn a lot about them.
Yeah, and it'd be really helpful for anyone that maybe they don't have a business, but maybe they end up doing some freelancing or something like that later. Like it's a
Yeah.
really easy jumping off point where you can just add this, that, or the other to that website. And like I just launched a new version of becomemorecompelling.com this year, and I built like 70% of it, but I had someone on my team build the rest of it because I was like, I'm trying to write this book. I'm using the website to put off writing, and so
The
I
site
can't
looks
do that.
beautiful, by the way. The site
Thank
looks
you, thank you.
really freaking good.
But to that point, not everyone is like me, where I'm like, oh yeah, I could just build it. Uh, for someone who doesn't have a whole lot of technical expertise, like do you and your team, like, do you? I assume you build the whole thing for them to roughly their spec. I'm sure you're probably working off set, like, hey, these are some options and whatnot. You're taking the heavy lifting off of the end user, correct?
Yeah. So yes, there's a service that I have that will build these for people. We charge like $29 a month or $99 a month if you want to do monthly phone calls. But I'm just trying to promote for your listeners, like whether you do it with me or you just build your own, like buy your own domain name, host your own site. You can do it for $4 a month on WordPress.com or $20 a year on this service called Card, Carrd.
Yeah, I've used card before a couple times, and they're pretty good for what it is.
It really is good.
It's nothing too fancy, but it looks nice.
It looks very nice. It's a simple single page website. Have something like this. I'm telling you, if you just sit down with a cup of coffee or tea for an hour and you just make this, put that out there, it really helps you to show up. Now, when I do it and I help people, we show them how to build links, because you want to show up higher in Google search results and how to do stuff like that so that you start to rank for your name. And we do proactive reputation management and things. There may be like a guide that I have how to do this, and I'll put that in the show notes. But in general, I just think people need to have their own site. Now, Jeff, I'd like to make you an offer. You have your domain name. I have a team who builds these. Can I build your site out? And if you don't want it, then you can erase it. But you're sitting on the domain name. We'll do it for you for free. And we'll put your podcast and we'll link to your book and your site and all that stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, do it.
Nice. All right, I'll talk to you afterwards about it.
Nice. I like it. And one underrated reason to do this, however you do it, and this is something that people, I think, never think about. So I Googled Jeff Callahan. This has been, 10 years ago or whatnot. But there was a ne'er-do-well Jeff Callahan in, like, I think he's in Chicago or Milwaukee or something like that, and he had done some terrible things. And
Yeah.
so if I'm remembering right, like a news article about this Jeff Callahan was at the top. And I think I even like emailed the site. I was like, hey, could you take this down? Because there are other people named Jeff Callahan.
Yeah.
I think eventually like that link just broke, right? Because that's how the internet goes. But it's in, like, you may think reputation management is only for like, oh, you have to be famous to do that. Well, it's good to have something, if for no other reason than you can outrank like a criminal with your name.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I felt like I've gotten really lucky where there have been no serial killers named Jeff Callahan, because then I would just have to be like, oh damn it, I have to
Yeah.
change my
Oh
name,
no.
don't I?
What have I got to
Like
do?
like what if it was like the most famous serial killer just happened to have your name? You're like, son of a bitch, I've had
Yeah.
my name for 40 years and now I've gotta change stuff up. That would just be like the worst.
Like, I fear for that happening with anyone's name. I have a colleague whose name, I have to whisper this, but his name is Alexis, and it triggers, all the home devices. Yeah, it's tough.
Pour one out, because it's just every time he walks into a room, everyone's gonna be listening,
Yep, it's true.
including Jeff Bezos.
Yes, for real.
Yeah. So, I want to be respectful of your time. We've only got a 45-minute book here. But is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that we haven't talked about? I am interested in all the AI stuff, and I know that you're up on all that stuff. And you've mentioned it a little bit. But is there anything else knocking around in that brain
I'm
of
doing
yours?
this cool museum donor database project. It's called patronview.com. And I've been using AI tools to help me build that, to create the database, to scrape the PDFs. We're listing
Interesting.
from all these major institutions like the Metropolitan Museum of Art and other stuff. It's been such an exciting project for me to learn how to use Claude Code and things like that. What type of tools are you using
Interesting.
now?
Oh,
for
I
AI?
use about all of them, except for Claude Code. I was just talking to a friend a few nights ago that recommended Claude Code. So the the end of the yellow brick road for me that I would love is to either vibe code or actually code my own app that would have I already have in my mind what it would be, and it would have a few different features. But I would love for us to be at a point where you could vibe code something like that, which I think we're getting close, but it's not quite there.
Hmm.
But some of my standouts are I like Google Notebook LM quite a bit. Like when I was writing the book and I was looking for client stories, like what's nice about Google Notebook LM is they don't save stuff. Where each one of your
Mm.
chats is just sectioned off, right? And it won't even save the chat. And so from a privacy perspective, assuming they're doing what they say they're doing, you can upload, client audios and things like that, where you could surface stories or examples of a time when someone used this, that, or the other, and you don't have a fear of someone using the audio inappropriately, right?
Huh.
And so I like that. It's not very creative. I will warn you, it's not creative at all, because its main thing is it's trying to just give you the information,
Yeah.
and it has citations in the next panel. And so what a lot of people do is they'll, for instance, like if you have like an old truck that you're working on or something like that, and you're like, oh, I want to upload all the specs of this thing. You can just upload it all there, and you're like, how do I change the oil in this thing again? Oh,
Interesting.
I'll just type it in, and it'll grab it from the PDF, show it to you, and then link to the citation of where it got that from. And so that's been super helpful, just as one example.
So you're using Google Notebook LM to help you. Have you heard about it making these slideshow presentations? Everybody's talking about
Mm-mm.
slides that you can make in Notebook LM, and apparently it's the absolute best at that. I
Really?
I think I'm sleeping on Notebook LM. I really don't use it that much. I should
I've
try.
seen I've seen the slideshow button, but I haven't pressed it because I haven't had a need to.
Supposedly you got to
Interesting.
try it. It's supposed to be cool.
And it will do, and it's kind of freaky. It will do its own podcast for you if you want it
Well,
to,
I've done that before. That is one thing that I've done, and I really like that.
which is kind of wild because AI voice is getting so good that they'll even. What kills me is it's a man and woman team, and when the one person's talking, the other person will make little affirmation noises.
Yes.
That
It's
I mentioned this in the book where it's like, oh yeah, oh totally. Like they'll make
yeah.
little affirmation noises, and it's really engaging, but it's kind of disconcerting. It's
It
like
really
the
is.
first time you got on one of those customer service phone calls, and an AI voice was making pretend keyboard noises,
Yeah.
all in the service of like trying to get you to hijack your brain to think, hey, it's a person and they're working for me.
Yes.
And I don't know how I feel about it. I I don't know. I
Yeah.
kind of love it, but I kind of hate it.
Yeah. It is wild. I mean, so I played one of these podcasts. I put some family history in, and I created a podcast about family history,
Oh,
and I
interesting.
shared it to my dad and my uncle, and they were blown away. They were so thankful. It was a really cool way for them to access that information. Um, but I can see these are unique tools, and we got to be careful with them. But I'm so happy with what it made.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, unless you've got anything else for me, uh, we'll wrap it here. But I have enjoyed this conversation immensely. It flew by. We'll have to have you on for a third. It's like title belts, where you'll have two or three belts for
I would
for
love to.
podcast appearances,
I would be honored to. That would be so cool.
and
That
I'll
would,
take you up on the website thing, and we'll make sure to get your links in the show notes and the YouTube video and all that good stuff as well.
yeah, great. All right, cool. Well, thank you for having me on, and good luck with your book. Everybody check it out. It's going to be great.
Thanks, Nick.